Welcome to This Academic Life, Episode 74.
This episode is sponsored by the School of Engineering at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Did you know that RPI Engineering graduates launched a digital revolution? Yes, that's right. The inventor of the microprocessor, Ted Hoff, the inventor of digital camera, Steve Sasson, and the inventor of graphics processor and a co-founder of NVIDIA, Curtis Prim, are all RPI engineers.
Hi, my name is Pania Newell. I'm a professor of mechanical engineering.
Hi, I'm Lucy Zhang. I'm also a professor of mechanical engineering.
Hi, I am Kim Michelle Lewis. I am a professor of physics and associate dean for research. Today, we have the opportunity to talk about a topic not often discussed. It is the idea of moving into the position of a department chair prior to being a full professor. So often, I've heard advice from colleagues who absolutely discourage faculty from serving as an administrator prior to becoming a full professor. However, there can be both advantages and disadvantages of making this move to an administrator. When I speak to faculty that have departments that appointed an associate professor as chair of the department, the reasons are varied. Reasons often include the faculty member exhibited leadership skills that will be beneficial to the role as chair to lead the department, or the tenured associate professors were the most senior professors in the department. In this case, there were no tenured full professors in the department, or the full professors were headed toward retirement within the year. Nevertheless, to move to an administrative position can be successful, and today we have the opportunity to speak with Dr. Clayborne, who is a tenured associate professor and interim chair in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry at George Mason University, located in Fairfax, Virginia. Recall we spoke to Andre a little over a year ago, and he was successfully navigating the transition between universities while on the tenure track. We decided to follow up with Andre about that last transition and speak to him about his current move into the role as an administrator. Andre, welcome back, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be back.
So, Andre, why don't you start out by catching us up on what has happened since we last spoke in early 2023? At that time, you were on the tenure track as an assistant professor at George Mason University.
Yeah, so I have tenure. Congratulations to me. Pat myself on the back in every which kind of way. After getting promoted, I took a deep breath, but when that happened, it's kind of thinking about what's next, because once you get tenure and you get promotion, it's kind of like, whoo, I made it. Now, what do I want to really do? Because you spend all that time doing it. Then afterwards, our chair that we had then, he got promoted, if you will. He applied for the position and became associate dean for undergraduate and graduate student affairs. And so then we needed an interim chair. And I will tell anyone, how did I make the decision to throw my name in the hat? I would say it wasn't the smartest decision I've ever made. So, but that's what I did. And I became interim chair of the department. So it's been quite busy, and seasons have changed also throughout the year.
So, Andre, it's so good to have you back, and congratulations on the promotions, and congratulations for being brave enough to step into a completely different role right after promotion.
Thank you. Thanks.
So, can you tell us a little bit about the process and how did you decide to accept the position?
Yeah, sure. So when our chair got promoted, essentially, it left a vacancy at the time. And so it was about who would be interim chair while they were doing a search. Honestly, the process overall, we were waiting, depending on your institution, depends on how that really works. Okay, so in our case, we were kind of just sitting waiting on the dean to appoint someone as interim chair. And of course, you always want it to be someone from your department. But of course, the dean can appoint who the dean sees fit to be that in that role. We were fortunate, we have a really good dean in that he wanted to hear from the department before he made a decision about that. And he was asking for nominations. And again, in some moment of craziness, I nominated myself. I don't know what I was thinking at the time to be interim chair. And I laugh, but I would tell anyone, don't do it, unless you really want to. But one of the reasons that I did nominate myself is because it was getting crunch time, and I knew a lot about, I won't say a lot, I knew enough about the administration part of the department. And it was one of these things where we really needed someone in the role. And I was like, I can do this. One of the reasons I know I can do this is I've been associate chair for research for the past 3 years. I was a manager before my academic life, so I've been able to manage people. I know how to manage people. I know what goes on with the administration, that point of what needs to be done. And I thought it would be a much shorter time than what it has turned out to be. So I will say that. So I don't want to say I got the okie doke was pulled on me, but that's what it kind of felt like a little bit. So that's why I decided to do it. And also because it was interim, I thought I could at least do it for the year while I also try to figure out what it is I want to do next. I don't know what I was thinking, but with that, and that's why I decided to do it, so I could at least help the department move forward.
In that process, did you think that it would slow down your research or on your own like productivity in any way? I mean, it's very selfless of you to kind of volunteer this position, and it takes a lot of guts, in my opinion.
So yeah, I came in with the expectation also that if I did this, that my research would slow down. I think in order to be, whether you want to be interim chair or you want to be department chair, or even if you want to move up in administration, the truth is there are a few people that have been successful moving up in administration, up through the ranks, that have held on to their research group, right? Very few. The ones that have done it, they have managed because they have a very strong research group and they have strong collaborators, and the collaborators are patient. And to be honest with you, one of my collaborators even told me, you might as well be interim chair to get it out the way because it goes around the department. But I have a strong research group and I have a very strong postdoc. Before I got in this role, I trained all of my graduate students myself, one-on-one. I do computation. And so I knew it would suffer, but I knew my students would work and push through. And I managed still meeting with them. So, and honestly, what's really funny is even though I thought my research would suffer, we still were able to submit so far 3 papers this year so far. And we have about, I think, 2 more in the pipeline that we're working on too. And I can really attest that to my postdoc and my students being dedicated and strong and also keeping me on task.
Andre, I know you cannot disclose everything, but generally speaking, based on your experiences, what advice would you offer for any tenured associate professor considering an administrative role? For example, what should they be prepared for as a chair?
Well, I think, I mean, that's a loaded question. I think if it's an associate professor, I don't think it's just about being an associate professor. I think it's about if you are a full professor or associate professor and you are thinking you want to be chair. To be department chair, your heart and your mind has to be in the right place. There are some people who want to be department chairs for power. That's not why you become department chair. If that's what you're looking for, it's definitely the wrong position to go into. I think you do have to be a person that you have a vision for the department if you want the long-term position. And by that, that means you got to really know the department or learn the department. I think also you have to be dedicated to the betterment of the department as well as the college that you're in. If your university is set up that way where you have colleges like College of Science, we have that here, and also overall for the university, because being chair means that you become immediately the face of your department. So you have to be able to know that you're going to have to speak and have tough conversations with the dean, with the provost, and also you're going to also have those same difficult conversations with your own faculty. You also need to be prepared for things to change, right? Because your colleagues that you used to kiki and haha with, you no longer can kiki and haha with them because now you're in a very different role. You're their supervisor. Okay. So those are things you have to be prepared for. And it doesn't mean that you're not still cordial and you don't have still fun times, but there's going to be that line that changes just like in any position that you go to. You have to be prepared to know what you need if you want to maintain your research productivity and do administration. Because if you know you're going to be chair, you may have to think, okay, what else do I need to have in place for my research to keep moving forward? And you need to have that discussion with the dean or the provost, depending on how your institution is set up, about what you need for that. And understand it is a 12-month position and you don't get a real break, right? Because what goes on in your department, you're ultimately responsible for. You have to become aware of budget. You have to become aware of HR policy. So if you're a person thinking you're just going to be in the chair position and you're not going to have to worry about what the state employment policies are, you need to know those. Even if you're at a private institution, you still need to know what federal policies are. You need to understand the laws as they pertain to how you have graduate teaching assistants. What does that mean? You got to learn all of that. You got to learn your staff. You got to learn everything. Is it a daunting task? Does it sound daunting? It can be, but you don't have to let it be, because if you know you have a good team that is usually in your department, that's going to be your administrative assistant. If you're lucky enough to have an HR person in the department or an HR liaison, sometimes they're the same person. If you have a fiscal tech, if you are in STEM, of course, you usually have laboratory coordinators that may be your staff, or instrument technicians. So these are people that you really have to get to know and rely on because they help the department function. And so you have to learn the ins and outs of all of that. And then also more about the university as well, and become very active. So I think those are things you do have to look out for, definitely, and really have a plan and a vision about what you want to do as you move forward.
Can I follow up on that? Now, you mentioned now that you have two sides in front of you. You have your faculty in the department, and now you have the dean or even higher up administrators. So you're now the interface between them. Have you seen anything that you didn't expect as you took on this position? Any challenges kind of along that direction?
It's about knowing what to say and when to say it and to who to say it to. That's that's the tricky part about it. And honestly, when to play nice and then when to stand your ground in a nice, polite way, right? Because let's face it, when you're faculty, what do you do when you're faculty? When you're faculty, when things go wrong, you go rah, 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 rah all around. But when you're the chair, you can really only say rah, 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 rah to yourself and then figure out who you need to talk to about what's making you go rah, 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 right? As funny as it sounds, it's true. And that's what you really have to learn how to do. And then you have to really learn everybody. And I mean everybody. If you get in this role and you think you can just talk to everybody any kind of way, it's not going to work, because you have to learn people. And that's been one thing I've learned, that, I mean, I knew that, but I didn't expect it to be as severe as it has been for some people. Like, really learn who needs to be coddled a little more, and you learn who doesn't, and then you learn how to say nicely, I need this, but who else do we need to talk to in case we can't get this done, and have these meetings and set them up. That's one thing that I had to learn that I didn't expect would be so challenging to get things done for your department, because that's what you really want, to try to get things done for your department to upper administration.
So during this transition, what did you find the easiest one? So it didn't require much of a training. You could just transition from faculty to be a chair.
The easiest thing for me was just being really honest and upfront with faculty, staff, and even upper administration for me, because I was, if I didn't know something, I would say, I don't know. I have to find out. And one thing I'm good at is I'm a researcher by training. So if I didn't know it, I could find it out really quickly. Some things for me that were a little easier to were HR policies. Those were, for me, one of the easier things to learn. And I think though part of that was because I had some experience with it before and how to deal with that part of it.
So, sorry, so you said that being honest, do you think just being in this role as an acting, do you think it played a role? If it was a permanent chair position, do you think it would have had, things were different?
I don't think so, but I will say why that is because I think it's personality driven. Also, my personality is such that if I don't know, I don't know. If I was going to be in this position for the next 4 years and I didn't know something, I'll be the first person to tell you, nah, I don't know how to, nope, I have to go back and see because I really don't know. But when I find it out, I will know for next time and I will get back to you, because that's right. That's what any good administrator does, but also it's what any good researcher does, right? We learn by experience. And the truth is, some faculty maybe would expect the full professor who maybe walks in to be chair to know everything, but the reality is a full professor doesn't know everything. They could have been at an institution for 20 plus years and not know something because it's not something they had to think about as a faculty member going through the tenure track. They didn't have to think about certain things until they got in that role. And you find that also with company. With companies, it's the same thing. If you're a lab tech and you move up the ranks, once you become a manager, you have to learn certain things that you didn't know. But I would never be like, I don't like saying things, and I'll be the first person to say this. I do not like saying things that I have a guess at when it comes to certain things, because I would just rather tell you I don't know than to tell you a lie or tell you something wrong. Because what happens is, as a chair, they come back and say, oh, well, that was a lie you told me. Because a lot of times faculty will, if you tell them something they don't believe you, what they should do is go research it themselves, right? And if they do and find something different, then they come back and say you lied. So now what do you have? Now you've created an environment of distrust within the department. You cannot operate a department like that. You can't operate a university like that, right? Because it creates animosity within, and that's one thing you want to minimize when you sit in the role of chair.
I love that, Andre. So my question is actually along with Pania's, but mine is more about vision. So in terms, if you were appointed as a permanent chair versus an interim chair, would your actions towards building up the department be different? For example, in terms of hiring, future hiring, tenure promotion, for example, would that affect you in any way?
Given the current status of our department, I would say maybe slightly, without saying too much. I think every chair that goes into, even in the interim position, there are some things that everyone in the department can agree upon, right? Even in the interim position. And what I tried to do is just that. I tried to say, okay, this is something that we all agreed we needed. And let's go down this road and do this. I mean, there were some things that I wanted to do, which I have done. And I started throwing the idea out there to get certain things done within a certain time frame. But I would have continued doing some of the things I'm doing now, but I would have also changed a little bit to say, this is the direction we need to go in. And I think it's better for us, along with the direction and vision that goes along with what our college and our university wants to do, because that's also the other piece. when you're chair. You want to have your own vision, but your vision must be able to fit within what the college wants to do and university wants to do if it's for the betterment overall of the entire university.
Thank you. So my next question is more related to your overall experience so far. Right. So when Kim started out, we were mostly interested in, as an associate professor, would you or would you not recommend someone else to take on this position based on your experience so far?
I would say if you were a less seasoned associate professor, the answer is don't take it on. That's what I would say. I would not recommend it unless you really see yourself going into administration. But I think even then, I think it's about taking advantage of, if your university allows it, to get involved in those types of leadership positions before being chair. I think that is really critical, and learning the university. So I can completely understand why full professors are usually the preferred choice for department chairs, because they have the years of experience at the university. They have seen some things going awry that they believe can be changed for the better. But it doesn't negate that an associate professor could do the job really well. It's just that you also have to consider, as an associate professor, sometimes it's very difficult to talk to other associate professors about what it takes to get promoted when you're not a full professor yourself. So these are things that you have to take into consideration. And I've had those conversations with my faculty, and I can be honest and say a lot of them were very surprised at what I told them to do. And they said, I never thought of that. And you're right. And then they go talk to someone else, and someone else says the same thing. They say, no, this is the thing you should do to be promoted to full professor. And I think that leads to a lot of challenges that are there. So it's something to consider before doing it.
With this good experience, would you think that sometime in the future that you would continue along this administrative track?
I've thought about it. I think, is it something I may do in the future? Yes. Exactly in what capacity, I don't know. I think it's also about me taking inventory of myself and what I want to do. Like I said, I'm at that stage right now where I've done this great experience. Maybe down the road, would I do it? Possibly. Would I do it here at George Mason University again? Maybe. Would I do it at another institution? Maybe. Would I do it at another R1 institution? Maybe. R2, PUI. I think it depends on where I am in about maybe 3 or 4 years.
That means that we need to have you back again, because it seems there are a lot of possibilities.
I will say the biggest joy out of all of this, doing this, has been the ability to help faculty, I will say, for me. So I've enjoyed that more than anything else, doing this position, helping them in research, helping them think about things they never really thought about. That has been fun. So that's why I would probably do it, to lead a department in a new direction, or on a trajectory that would be great for a department that's on the rise or that's there. So that has been it's been enjoyable. But, the truth is, a lot of people don't want to be chair, right? There's a ton of people out there that don't want to be chair, don't want to be dean, don't want to be provost, don't want to be president, and they have every reason not to. And then you find people that want to be chairs and want to be deans and want to be provosts and want to be presidents as they move up. And usually by the time you think about being a provost or president, it's because you found your path in administration. And usually it starts at being chair, is where it has started at in some capacity. So I think in that respect, if a person has ever thought about it and you really think about putting the department needs ahead of your own, it's something to do. And then think about your career beyond that. And I think that's important.
Andre, thank you so much for taking time to share your experiences of moving into an administrative role as a tenured associate professor. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Nowadays, more tenured associate professors are moving into administrative roles prior to becoming a full professor. There are many reasons. However, if you're a tenured associate professor and you're considering this move, then be sure to understand your motivation, your professional trajectory, and plan how you'll continue to seek promotion to full professor while in the administrative role. Also, it is important to have many mentors as you move through these decisions and opportunities throughout your professional career. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. You can follow us on Facebook and listen to our latest episodes on iTunes, Spotify, or Amazon Music. We'd like to thank our sponsor, the School of Engineering at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, for sponsoring this episode. If you're interested in being a sponsor, then please contact us at sponsor@thisacademiclife.org. Join us next time for the good, the bad, and the ugly of this academic life.